What are some of the dumbest decisions people make? Let's find out, starting with rapper Gloria GloRilla Hallelujah Woods apparently failed a sobriety test after being pulled over for making a U-turn at a red light and got herself arrested. Is there anything more annoying than entitled rappers thinking they're above the law? GloRilla, the Grammy-nominated rapper from Memphis, was stopped in Gwinnett County, Georgia. On her way home from a venue in Midtown Atlanta, Woods was pulled over near a major intersection around 4 a.m. for making an illegal U-turn at a solid red light. During the stop, GloRilla asked the officer if he knew who she was. We're sure it's their favorite question. Of course, the officer said that he didn't, and at 4 a.m., he probably cared even less than he normally would have. Woods was apparently shocked beyond belief that the officer had never heard of her, feeling that her fame should have made her instantly recognizable. And she did get nominated for a Grammy, and good for her, but we don't think the average person over 35 has heard of her. The situation escalated when the officer conducted field sobriety tests. At one point, GloRilla's bikini-style top caused a wardrobe malfunction, and the officer had to instruct her to cover up. Despite this, she continued with the tests and appeared to fail them. As a result, officers asked her to remove her jewelry and placed her in handcuffs, leading her to ask if she could sue them for wrongful arrest. Ultimately, GloRilla was charged with driving under the influence, possessing an open alcoholic beverage container in a motor vehicle, and failing to obey a traffic control device. In our opinion, driving drunk is probably one of the worst decisions you can make just in general, since it risks so much to yourself and other people. The fact that she's rich means that she can afford Ubers easily and not take on this unnecessary risk of injuring herself, someone else, or getting arrested. We're just glad no one got hurt. Number 6. Above the law. Sandra Doorley, the district attorney of Monroe County, New York, was caught speeding at 55 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour zone close to her home. But rather than stopping for the pursuing officer, she just drove to her house and called the local police chief to complain about the officer. Doorley admitted she was speeding, but said she preferred to speak with the officer at her home. You know, like most of us. The officer followed her and issued a ticket, which she accepted, claiming she didn't intend to use her position to avoid consequences. The officer's body cam footage, however, showed a different story. When confronted by the officer, Doorley didn't bother trying to hide her irritation, calling the officer an a-hole and insisting she wasn't a threat. She refused to step out of her garage, handed the officer her phone to speak with the police chief, then retreated into her house against the officer's orders. Throughout the encounter, Doorley repeatedly pulled the equivalent of the old "Do you know who I am?" line that never works, repeatedly telling the officer that she's the DA and showing off her super special DA badge. The officer tried to explain the seriousness of her behavior, but Doorley responded dismissively, blaming her stressful day dealing with criminals and personal issues. Following the viral spread of the body cam footage, Sandra Doorley released an apology video. In this 30-second clip, she admitted that she was wrong and took full responsibility. She said that she would submit an attorney grievance complaint for investigation as a form of self-discipline. But that kind of sounds like when a kid gets in trouble and tries to volunteer their own punishment so it might be less severe, doesn't it? Yeah, Mom, I burned down the neighbor's house. I guess no dessert for me tonight, huh? The video came after numerous calls for Doorley's resignation and a request from New York Governor Kathy Hochul for an investigation into her conduct. In her apology, Doorley expressed regret for failing to uphold the standards she claims she holds herself to and acknowledged the widespread impact of her behavior. During the interaction, Officer Cameron Crisafulli remained cool and professional, contrasting sharply with Doorley's entitled behavior. Despite her claims of handling the ticket herself, which in no way should be allowed, the officer did his official duty like he should. Doorley explained that her behavior stemmed from a particularly tough day at work and some personal family issues. However, she admitted that everyone faces stress and her actions were inexcusable. In her final remarks, she acknowledged being humbled by her own actions and took full blame. Do you think she's really sorry or just sorry she got caught? We've all had bad days, but on the other hand, she came off really entitled. So there's a good chance that that may just be her mindset. Number 5. Borrowed time. A not-so-bright woman from Muncie, Indiana, named Cassia Shelton, stole a car and then proceeded to use the stolen vehicle to drive to a job interview to be an exotic dancer in Indianapolis. Hey, we've all got dreams, right? Shelton found herself in legal trouble after stealing a 2013 Kia Optima from a local dealership. Wait, she stole an old Kia? We've got questions. Anyway, Shelton's journey began when she visited RDI Motors with the intent to test drive the car. While a salesperson was preparing the vehicle, Shelton took advantage of his distraction caused by persistent phone calls and drove off with the car. The dealership quickly reported the theft to the police, who used a camera system to track the stolen Kia heading towards Indianapolis. After a brief stay in the capital, the car was seen returning to Muncie. This led authorities to Shelton's home, where she initially lied about her identity. However, when confronted with the evidence, she confessed to taking the car to attend an interview for a job as an exotic dancer. Shelton didn't seem to grasp the severity of her actions. Apparently, she's a bit of a low-watt bulb, if you can believe it. She insisted that she had returned the car by leaving it in the parking lot of Muncie Mall, which was literally right next to the dealership. However, the vehicle was actually recovered in Anderson, about 30 minutes away. Shelton's nonchalant attitude towards the theft, viewing it as a mere inconvenience rather than a crime, was apparent during her interaction with the police. Charged with auto theft and identity deception, both felonies, Shelton faces up to 2.5 years in prison if convicted. Well, Cassia, maybe next time just get an Uber, or get a ride from a friend, or just work online doing the same thing. We hear there's websites for that. Not that we know personally, we've just heard from friends. Or if you're going to steal a car, maybe steal a nicer one. Or maybe really do just drop it off next door, since there's a good chance they probably wouldn't throw the book at you if you're into making stupid decisions, which it seems like you are. Number 4, an Uber getaway. Some dude in Colorado, known only as Jose, tried to make a quick escape with stolen goods, but things didn't go as planned. He was caught red-handed while attempting to use an Uber as his getaway car. This incident happened in the suburbs of Denver, where the thief was busy looting a plumbing store, like you do. The store owner noticed something was off when he saw a hole in the fence and spotted the burglar on surveillance footage. Acting quickly, the owner called the police. By the time the Wheat Ridge police arrived, they found an Uber driver waiting nearby who mentioned his passenger Jose was on his way to the car. Body cam footage shows an officer approaching the suspect, asking if he was looking for an Uber. The man, hilariously dressed in a black hoodie and balaclava, seriously, he was literally dressed up like a burglar, nervously denied it and gave the fake name Raoul. As he tried to walk away, the officer stopped him, since apparently there's just no fooling Denver PD. He claimed he was headed to his mom's house, but he had no ID to prove his identity, so his situation started taking a turn. The contents of his backpack were what ultimately gave him away, since his criminal outfit apparently wasn't enough. The bag was stuffed with over $8,600 worth of Milwaukee tools, so officers quickly took him into custody, and fingerprint scanners later confirmed his true identity. Jose faced several charges, including theft over $2,000, criminal trespassing, and false reporting to authorities. It would have been so great to see this guy get caught, dressed like that with a bag of stolen tools, trying to talk his way out of getting arrested. When the cops pulled up, he had to look like a guilty dog, and there's nothing more guilty looking than a guilty dog. Number 3, no jealousy. We don't typically cover sports, but there's been some dumb decisions going on in the WNBA. Current it girl Caitlin Clark, the standout player for the Indiana Fever, has been making headlines not just for her exceptional skills, but also for the rough treatment she's been getting on the court. Just for a quick recap, in a recent game around the release time of this video in June 2024, during a game against the Chicago Sky, Clark was hit hard by Kennedy Carter in a non-basketball play, sending Clark crashing to the ground. This sentiment was echoed by Clark herself, who called the foul just not a basketball play, and by Fever general manager Lynn Dunn, who criticized the unnecessary targeting and called for the league to address such actions. Why Carter did what she did is anyone's guess. Only she herself knows the truth. But the hard pill for her to swallow is that Clark's not just the Indiana Fever star player, she's the WNBA's star player. She's really the only reason the average person is tuning in to the WNBA currently. Protecting her isn't just about fairness. It's about the success of the league. The hard truth is that not that many people care about women's basketball. Any attention for Caitlin Clark means more revenue for the league, and that means more money for everyone. It would just be absolutely dumb to purposely injure the cash cow that's going to help put more money in your pockets strictly out of jealousy. Even accidentally injuring your cash cow is a dumb act because you'd want to go out of your way to protect your money-making machine. Clark's Indiana Fever teammates really should rally around Caitlin Clark themselves and protect her. It was quite telling that there was no retaliation from her teammates with that hard foul. Number 2. Unpaid bills. Rapper Sean Kingston, who had that one song forever ago, got in serious trouble when he was arrested during a concert at a U.S. Army base in California. Earlier that day, his mother was taken into custody at his Florida mansion. Kingston faced charges of fraud and theft, and the arrest happened smoothly, but was during his performance. Like, literally, while the dude was on stage. Kingston was performing at Fort Irwin, an Army base about 150 miles from Los Angeles, for the United States Army's Family and Morale, Welfare, and Recreation programs. Law enforcement officers were seen at the event while Kingston sang his hit song, Eeny Meeny. He was booked into jail in San Bernardino during his scheduled set. Back in Florida, Kingston's mom, Janice Turner, was also arrested at his luxurious property. She faced similar charges to her son. The mansion, which Kingston was renting, became the focus of a significant raid. The trouble started when allegations arose that Kingston had swindled a tech company out of thousands of dollars over a deal for a television and speaker system. Ver Entertainment LLC filed a lawsuit against Kingston, alleging breach of contract and fraud. The rapper had contacted the company to purchase a 232-inch colossal TV and a sound system, which would have cost at least $111,000, which seriously sounds freaking cool. Kingston allegedly promised to make promotional videos about the products with his friend Justin Bieber, but this collaboration never materialized. But a contract was agreed upon, saying that Kingston would make an initial down payment of $30,000 and a second payment of $48,000, along with social media posts valued at over $38,000. This deal would have allowed Kingston to get the equipment for about $77,800, significantly less than the original price. However, after the system was installed, Kingston failed to make the second payment or produce the promised promotional content. The lawsuit claimed that Kingston made false statements to get the equipment installed with a minimal down payment, knowing he had no intention of fulfilling his end of the deal. His lawyer, Robert Rosenblatt, acknowledged the allegations and expressed confidence in a favorable resolution for both Kingston and his mother. Following the raid and his mother's arrest, Kingston took to social media to defend himself, saying that both he and his mother were fine and that his lawyers were handling everything. Seems like this was a situation that could have been easily avoided if Kingston had simply just paid the bill and fulfilled the contract. However, did the police have to arrest him during his show over this? Seems like they could have waited. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay right here to find out about a few of the worst decisions they made that led to unlucky outcomes. Number 1. Magnetic cash. James Kane and Barbie Agostini, a couple from Queens, wound up in a weird situation while magnet fishing, which is a thing, apparently, at a park in New York. The couple discovered an old safe at the bottom of a lake, which had $100,000 in cash money. James and Barbie got into magnet fishing during the lockdown. Bored and looking for something interesting to do, they discovered this hobby, which James calls the poor man's treasure hunting. James and Barbie were enjoying their hobby one afternoon when they felt something heavy on the end of their line. So they pulled it up and found an old safe. They expected it to be empty like some other safes they had found before, but they were in for a big surprise. The pair managed to open the safe and found the cash inside, though it was damaged by water. James described it as 2 stacks of hundreds wrapped in plastic. Barbie initially thought James was joking, but when she saw the actual bills and security ribbons, she was pretty shocked. Unfortunately, the money was soaking wet and pretty much destroyed. So the couple decided to call the NYPD to avoid any legal issues. We're sure they would have totally called if the money was pristine, just like you would, right? Several officers showed up, intrigued by the unusual call. They told James and Barbie they had never seen anything like it. With no way to identify the owner of the safe, which was probably stolen, the couple was allowed to keep what they found. James said that the finders keepers rule worked in their favor this time. Whoever stole all this cash in the safe probably wasn't exactly doing much thinking when they tossed the entire safe in a a lake. We've seen enough movies to know that if you ever randomly find that amount of cash somewhere, it's going to attract an Anton Chigurh, and that may be a problem in the future. Who are some of the scammers who should have gotten away? Let's get right into it and start with number 5, not a routine. Platini Stallone de la Torre Cardosa was an expert at forging identity documents and using them to scam unsuspecting victims. Unfortunately for him, the authorities were also experts at catching criminals, and Platini soon found himself in police custody. Platini was going about his jolly day when he encountered officers conducting a random stop and search operation. At the time, he had 2 forged Portuguese ID cards and 2 forged Portuguese driving licenses in his possession. This piqued the officers' interest, and they conducted a larger search of his home. Police found equipment for making forged passports, identity cards, and national insurance cards. The investigation discovered bank accounts that were set up using the forged documents and were intended to be sold on as a package. Police also found controlled and contraband substances in his room. The final nail in the coffin for Platini Stallone de la Torre Cardosa was the stash of pictures of him found in his house. In those pictures, he was flaunting the cash he'd gotten from his criminal enterprise. It's always a great idea to take pictures of illegal things you do. In court, the lawyers argued that Platini posting those pictures was a result of his total disregard for the law. The judge eventually sentenced Platini to 4 years. However, before sending Platini on his merry way to prison, the judge spoke about the harm he'd caused. He said Platini's actions could help international criminals and terrorists achieve their aims, and that Platini was a resource for all manner of criminals. In the end, judgment was passed, and Platini Stallone de la Torre Cardosa went to jail. Maybe next time Platini won't walk around in public with things that can get him arrested and sent to prison. Number 4, a giant mega scam. Adon Lewis Coffin trashed his pizza and ice cream shop to make a racially motivated burglary to file an insurance claim. The suspect, Adon Lewis Coffin, is a former NFL player who played for several NFL teams from 2012 to 2016. The police were notified of the incident when a 911 distress call came in at around 9:30 p.m. The caller reported that the man trashing the pizza shop drove a black Chevrolet Silverado that didn't have a license plate. Later that night, police officers stopped the truck matching that description leaving the area and found televisions attached to damaged drywalls in the back of the truck. They also discovered that the driver of the truck was none other than Adon Lewis himself. After further investigation, the police discovered that the pizza shop had been vandalized. There were swastikas on the door, racial slurs sprayed in wet, fresh paint, and someone had even written MAGA on the wall. The video surveillance system was destroyed, the booth cushions were sliced open, wires were cut, and the mirrors were broken. It reminds us of that time we got a cat for Christmas. Don't ask. At first sight, it looked like your classic hate crime, but officials knew that something wasn't quite right. When asked about what happened, Kaufman coughed out a response that the police didn't take seriously. He claimed that he noticed the damage and the theft earlier in the day, but had called his insurance company instead of the police. The police, however, could smell what Kaufman was cooking, and it smelled like BS. So the police decided to arrest Kaufman. Once he was in custody, police secured a warrant to search his vehicle, and what they found confirmed their suspicions. For some reason, Kaufman was in possession of a yellow crowbar and cans of spray paint. Kaufman had also found himself in possession of likely tools that had been used to trash the pizza shop. Some people may think that this was just a coincidence, but not the police. According to the police, the only reason they'd figured that Kaufman was behind the crime was because of the witness. If the witness hadn't seen Kaufman's car, it wouldn't have been flagged down. And if it had never been flagged down, Kaufman would have gotten away with the perfect crime. Unfortunately for Kaufman, his plan came with some hiccups, and he was caught. Kaufman's lawyer wanted to remind everyone that he should be presumed innocent and that we shouldn't prejudge without knowing all the facts. Who doesn't drive around with crowbars, spray paint, and TVs that have clearly been ripped off the wall? This sounds like an episode of Reno 911. Number 3, Scam-a-go-round. Cyber criminals who use hacking forums to purchase login details and software exploits keep falling for scams themselves. These criminals often get duped on these forums, and they usually have no recourse after getting scammed. We all feel bad for them. These hacker forums are like marketplaces where scammers of all kinds gather to do business. They advertise what goods they have to sell and can even advertise for the services of specialists in certain criminal endeavors. These forums are usually hotspots for fraudsters who want to purchase databases of stolen passwords and credit card information. However, these business dealings don't always go according to plan. The evidence for this extraordinary phenomenon of scammers scamming scammers comes from a study of 3 such hacking forums. The forums investigated were 2 Russian language forums, Exploit and XSS, and 1 English language forum, Beach Forum. The scams that happen on these forums take many different forms. Some are quite simple, while others can be rather sophisticated. One example is a rip and run scam. Rip and runs are scams where the seller of merchandise or a service receives payment but doesn't go through with the sale. It can be vice versa, as a buyer could receive the merchandise and refuse to send payment. Other types of tricks include selling merchandise that either doesn't work or is fake. One scammer on the forum claimed that another seller sold them Facebook data that was already in the public domain, which was probably more their fault that they didn't check ahead of time. Another example was a lengthy post by a scammer claiming that they'd provided a kernel exploit for someone on the forum, and the person refused to pay the agreed $130,000. Another example, scammers get scammed by multiple accounts working together. An account with a good reputation may refer a victim to another account, and that account may perpetrate a scam on the unsuspecting scammer. One scammer wanted to buy a fake copy of the NFT game Axie Infinity. They wanted to purchase this fake game and include a backdoor to siphon off legitimate users' funds. Unfortunately for them, the person they bought the game from included a backdoor in the backdoor. Hence, the scammer was getting scammed by the game they bought to scam others. The most interesting scam investigators discovered was one surrounding the Genesis Marketplace. The Genesis Marketplace is an online forum for criminals to purchase things like hotel login details, email addresses, victims' names, and other personal details. This forum is quite popular and has been online since 2017. However, when researchers started researching the forum, they realized that there was a fake version of the site showing up on Google searches. The website was built on basic WordPress template and asked for money to grant access. The real Genesis website, on the other hand, was invite only. But that wasn't the only odd thing with this fake site. The site linked out to other cybercrime websites, and the Bitcoin address people could make payments to change after it was copied and pasted. It was also being advertised on Reddit. This told investigators that the operation was most likely carried out by a group of collaborators, and they were correct. Over the course of their investigations, they discovered 20 more fake sites like the Genesis site. Most of the sites were impersonating real scam forums and often requested new users to pay to join. Investigations revealed that the phenomenon of scammers scamming other scammers isn't rare at all. After all, there's no honor amongst cyber criminals, and it seems scammers don't have any sacred cow. They'll scam whoever, however, and whenever. It's generally difficult to feel sorry for these scammers who get defrauded on the forum. They're usually on the forum seeking ways to scam other people. So it's sweet karma, and they can get scammed in return. Another sweet irony is that the complaints of these scammers could lead investigators to identify them. When they complain about being scammed, they often have to present evidence and information, and this information could likely lead to their identification. So not only are scammers getting scammed wholesale, but they also can't complain too much if they want to keep their identities secret. It's the worst kind of trap to be in, and one can only be glad that scammers get into it. Number 2. Accounting never stops. In 2017, an official named Alan Boland at the Bank of Ireland noticed an odd pattern across certain accounts. Boland noticed the same spelling mistake across the 6 BOI accounts belonging to 3 different people. Boland decided to investigate further and discovered that the spelling mistake wasn't the only similarity. The banking calls of the 6 accounts sounded the same, and they had similar IP addresses. Boland informed the police, and further investigations began. After concluding investigations, the police, led by Detective Garda Alan McCarthy, discovered what he described as an identity factory. McCarthy uncovered a scheme run by Keith Flynn and Lindsay Clark. At the time, the 6 original identities had already taken around 32 £200,000 in loans. Police began to watch the couple and realized that they rented different apartments. They were both lawyers at the time and had unblemished records. Hence, the police wanted to be sure that they could both be linked to the fraudulent accounts. After watching the duo for a while, the police secured an arrest warrant and entered Flynn's apartment. They found scanners, phones, wigs, documents, and a safe. The key to the safe was handed over, and the police discovered that it contained £92,300 in cash, alongside 21 full Irish driving licenses with different names, 19 bank cards, and 16 credit union cards. Digital copies of 4 passports were also discovered, alongside 31 SIM cards and a shredder. Flynn and Lindsay ran the scam by opening a bank account, applying for a loan of about £10,000 to £12,000, and then draining the account of that loan. They would make about 2 or 3 payments, and then after that, the next repayment was missed, and the bank loan would be written off as a bad debt. There would be nothing to suggest that any fraud was going on. The accounts would simply be written off as bad debts. Banks have safeguards against this sort of thing, but Lindsay and Flynn produced documents of supremely high quality in opening the account. The criminal couple got fake IDs and combed the internet for people who looked like them to create their fake identities. For addresses, the couple identified homes that were on sale or empty and called their owner, pretending to be the former tenants. Then they asked the owners if any parcel had arrived recently for them. Their operation was so good that the police only caught them because of Boland's lucky discovery. Boland's legwork was the key ingredient that led to the couple getting caught. In total, the couple stole around £390,000 from the banks. However, there's still some confusion over how they spent it. Investigators say there's some speculation that the money was being sent overseas, but there's no evidence to corroborate it. Another theory is that they spent the money on living a luxury lifestyle, but there's very little evidence of that as well. While others believe that the money is likely being kept somewhere as a contingency. Both Lindsay and Flynn pled guilty to fraud charges immediately. Due to their immense cooperation, Flynn was jailed for only 4 years, and Lindsay only got 2 years for some reason. The court believed that Flynn was about twice as responsible as Lindsay for the same crime. Maybe he was trying to make up for the gender wage gap. In the event of a trial, Clark was facing 388 charges and Flynn 389. In any case, we doubt Lindsay and Flynn will be running any clear fraud scheme in prison. Or could they? Number 1. Unknown circumstances. Prince Sobiez Nestor made a name for himself as a rich billionaire who had an extravagant lifestyle and showed off his wealth. But he passed away in police custody after getting arrested because of one of his videos. From wads of cash to new luxury cars and exotic homes, Prince Nestor showed off everything he had. In a video he posted months before his death, the billionaire shared a close-up of a new luxury car, a stunning white Rolls-Royce Phantom 8 that undoubtedly cost nearly $500,000. The billionaire then revealed that he planned to buy the ride and take it back to Nigeria. Obiez went on to taunt the FBI and the EFCC, a Nigerian anti-graft agency that investigates all financial crimes. Naturally, his unexplainable wealth would grab their attention, but Prince Nestor wasn't too worried. He bragged that he wasn't bothered by any anti-graft agencies like the EFCC and FBI. Prince Nestor said if they questioned him, he would settle them, whatever that means. This was months before his mysterious death. On January 8th, 2021, he posted a brow-raising video of himself in his opulent Dubai home surrounded by an unbelievable amount of money. He made a show of counting and waving the wads of dollar bills around. He was probably just showing that he knows all of his numbers and can count. People brag about weird stuff these days. Unsurprisingly, the video garnered a lot of attention because people really like watching other people count stuff. But some of that attention was from people you don't really want to notice you. 4 days later, Prince Obiez posted his video. The police stormed into his house in Dubai and promptly arrested him. It all happened so fast and in no time. Prince Nestor was completely isolated from his friends and family. They didn't even let him contact or speak to his lawyer. He was held in custody by the CID for interrogation. Prince Obiez's arrest shook the internet, but what happened just a few days later was more surprising. By the end of January 2021, Prince Obiez had passed away in police custody under mysterious circumstances. To this day, no one is still quite sure what happened to him. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather watch, the WNBA or any other women's sport.